Well, the Christmas season is upon us, and I imagine that you have your Christmas checklist already going, the different things that you need to do, the different people you need to see, that Christmas card that you need to get out to all the people's addresses that you don't have. Are you starting to feel a little overwhelmed? Well, maybe this Christmas season, you need to slow down. Today on Living the Message, that is exactly what we will be discussing. How to slow down and why you should, so that we can marvel at the beautiful message and the beautiful person of Christmas. Stay tuned. Welcome to Living the Message, where we discuss how the message of Christ might dwell among us richly. I'm Pastor Eric Targe, and I'm here with Senior Pastor of the Moody Church, Philip Miller. Hey, Philip.
Hey, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We started a new series this week.
We did?
It's the Christmas season, and so
Yes.
we're changing things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right, so what's the new series title?
It's The Greatness of Christmas.
The Greatness of Christmas.
That's right.
Now, why? What's so great about Christmas?
What's so great about Well, we're walking through Luke chapters, like 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and just tracing the story of the nativity in Christ and the coming of Christ, Advent. So
Advent, yeah.
focusing in. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I wasn't at church this Sunday. As you know, I was driving back from New York, and so I was listening to your message. And my wife and I were listening, just sitting in the front seat. And because, you're driving and you got kids in the back, I couldn't help but actually listen to your message on YouTube at like 1.5 speed. And so it was going a little faster, hoping I could listen to it uninterrupted while the kids are napping. And it was really funny because as I'm listening to you talking like slight chipmunk, because you're talking pretty fast, you say, Advent's an incredibly important time to calm down and slow down. And my wife looks at me and just goes, because she's listening to it so fast, she's like, seriously, you're listening at 1.5 when he's saying you're supposed to...
Right, rushing through it.
Ironic,
very ironic.
Totally ironic, but it's kind of emblematic of just like the Christmas season. It's what people tend to do.
Yeah.
Like we tend to think Christmas is when we speed up, and then all of a sudden it's December 26th and we don't know what happened to the month.
Right, it just rushes by. Yeah.
And it's the worst, right? Like no one ever feels fulfilled or excited by the thing. Like, oh, I'm so glad that I rushed through that all. Sure. It's kind of like discouraging. And one of the things you brought out in your message this past Sunday was that it's important that we actually pause and let the wonder in.
Yeah.
When it comes. What do you mean by that? Pause and let the wonder in.
Well, I mean, you've just said it. The whole problem with the Christmas holiday, and at least in my experience, is it is rushed. Like there's always a million things, long to-do lists. We've got gifts to buy for everybody, and all these people. I joke about the $10 price point is the worst. It's like I feel like I've got to go give somebody something, and then I go to the store and they have the bin of all that junk. It's like, well, it's only
the white
10
elephant gifts.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I get a bunch of it every year, and I'm like, I don't want this, and it's
totally.
But there's this franticness, Christmas cards, and trying to get everything out the door, and family and expectations, and it piles up, and it's just it's just like this intense season, and so it takes effort to pause, to slow down, to attend to the Christmas story and everything that Christ is doing and saving us and the world, and not forgetting that in the franticness of everything else.
So why do you think that's so important to slow down? Like,
Yeah.
why not? If it's so crazy and it's so frustrating for so many people to have to do all those things, why not just rush through it and get her done, right?
Yeah. Well, there's something about savoring the journey and the process. I think what happens is, we know this, that important things tend to get shoved away by urgent things. The tyranny of the urgent, right? And Christmas has a lot of urgency. We got gifts to buy and deadlines. We got to send stuff and get packages in the mail and get cards out and get photographs in and like all the stuff, right? And there's Christmas parties and work parties and family parties and right. And you got to do
stressing me out already.
Yeah. You got to do all the stuff, right? And so. It's not going to go away. That pace isn't going to go away. So the question is, can I create space in my life a little bit, just pause a little bit, create opportunities, openings for me to just slow down and actually pay attention to what's going on? Because really what's happening is the Christmas story and season and Advent is a time for us to remember the story that we live in. We are each are writing our own story in a sense, living it out as we live our lives. But our stories are part of a bigger story. They're the part of the big story of what God is doing in this universe, setting things right through his Son who comes to live among us. And so what we're saying is we've got to pause and remember the big story, not let the little pressing things that are there, they're never going to go away, but don't let that totally cloud out the magnificence, the magnitude of what's actually happening and what we get to celebrate and be a part of. And so I think Advent is an opportunity for us to pause and to create space so that we can remember who we are in light of this bigger story of what God is doing in world history, which is way bigger than just what I have to get in the mail by Tuesday, right?
Yeah. So how do you do that? Like as a family, how have you done that well that maybe others can try?
Well, I don't know that we do everything, as well as we should. I think especially even this last couple of years with the pandemic, we've been thrown off in so many ways.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But we like to do like a little Advent calendar where we, like we have a little thing, we're opening the little doors and we've got like, something for each day that,
little
25.
Chocolates or what do you guys do as a family?
We have chocolates right now. Yeah.
Chocolates.
Yeah.
Fun. I do tea.
Yeah.
Little teas.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you do Advent calendars
So
and other things?
it's just a way to have a little ritual, a little routine, to look forward to, and then one thing we've done in the past is the Jesus Storybook Bible, which I love reading with my kids. It actually has 25 chapters leading up to the one where Jesus arrives, and so if you start reading the Jesus Storybook Bible in creation, Genesis 1:1, right? But you start on December 1st. You can actually run that all the way through the month, and then you arrive at Christmas on Christmas, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's totally cool.
And
you know what's awesome about the Jesus Storybook Bible? I feel like even if you don't have kids, it's just good to read.
It really is.
It does something to your soul. Sally Lloyd-Jones is just...
She's wonderful.
Oh, just amazing.
Beautiful writing, great insights.
I feel like every time I've read it a whole bunch of times with my kids, and just every time I've read it, I've been like, wow, I missed that angle of the beauty of the gospel. She just does such a good job.
It's great, yeah. So but there's a million devotional books that'll help you do that too, right? And so, but I think the key is pausing. It's just creating a little space. The stress is never going to go away. The tasks are never going to go away. All the social obligations they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
But say, in the midst of all of that, I'm just going to pause, take a breather for 15 minutes, and we're going to do these things as a family. We're going to reflect. We're going to think. We're going to ponder. We're going to have a moment, and then we'll go right back to the chaos. But just like inserting it right into the midst of things, right? You can anchor it to a meal. And so like we sit down for dinner, and we're going to have our 15-minute moment here. You can anchor it to bedtime. You can anchor it to the morning, whatever. But the key is, I think there's deliberate intentionality of just creating space for your soul to just breathe and to attend to the bigger story.
Well, I think what you just brought out is essential that I really think people can so easily miss. Because saying, oh, we'll do an Advent calendar or read a book or do any of those things can feel like, okay, so just another tradition.
Just another thing.
Throw another tradition on and it's overwhelming and another thing. But what you said is pause.
It's a tool.
Don't just do the Advent calendar and look, I've savored Jesus. It's like, no.
Right.
Actually savor, sit.
Yeah, sit with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and use the tool to do that. Like the Advent calendar is not the point. The point is there's a moment where I have to stop. And I have to open the silly little door. And I need to, right? Like, and it sort of reminds me to do it, right? So it's not about that. It's about creating the space where I can just pause and breathe and create space. And you think about it, in the Bible, God even commands Sabbath, right? Resting, stopping, ceasing, being still, worship and sitting in these spaces. We're not good at that. We're not good at that. And so it's weird that you have to command someone to have a rhythm of rest and reflection. That's odd, right?
Yeah.
And yet our souls need it. And every time we do it, we go, oh, that was good. But you never feel like you have time. So that's the point, is just saying, I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to make it happen. We're going to anchor it to something we're already doing so we don't forget it.
Yeah.
And just choosing the space. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. Like in a season that's so focused on commercialism and so focused on buy for me, for others, we can become so self-obsessed in this season. And so taking that taking that time to break, to stop, is a way in which we say, okay, God, I'm not in control. You're in control. This isn't about me.
Yeah,
It's about you.
that's right.
And I think that's even what Sabbath is about, right? Like that's the seventh day is about, to say, I'm not building my kingdom anymore. I'm going to rest in yours.
That's right.
And so what a good word. Now you didn't say just pause, but because I think just pausing would be just to take a nap.
Yep.
Right. And so
Right.
we're not advocating napping, though probably you might need to nap. My wife needs to nap right now.
I think a lot of people need a nap.
A lot of people need to nap.
Yeah.
But you said we're supposed to do something in that, and you said the word you used was wonder.
Yeah.
In fact, you said pause and let the wonder in.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of wonder, I think of our music pastor because he sings this song, not because he's so wonderful. He is wonderful. But Tim Stafford, whenever he gets to Christmas Eve, he sings his song, "I Wonder as I Wander," and that just comes to mind. What do you mean by wonder? What is wonder?
Well, I didn't think of Tim. So
You didn't
yeah,
think-
but
yeah. After this Christmas Eve, you'll
I
be
will.
thinking
I
of
will.
Tim.
Okay. So, but yeah, no, wonder is. I mean, we think of wonder as magic and all of that kind of thing. Wonder is amazement. Wonder is worship. Wonder is reflecting and curiosity and being a little mesmerized by the beauty and encountering something bigger than ourselves, right? And I think when we pause and let the wonder in, there's this sense of like, this is a wonderful story. That God is writing, that he did not leave humanity on our own in self-destruction, but he sent his son to incarnate and become one of humanity, to tether his destiny to the destiny of humanity. I mean, this is amazing, Eric. He gets on the sinking ship and becomes one of us, and it takes him down, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, then he also has the power of the Son of God, which comes back to life, but he brings humanity with him in his resurrection life. And this is a massive cosmic moment in history. And Hebrews talks about this in the first chapter of Hebrews, how when Jesus went to the Father's side and when he's exalted, he says to who of the angels did God ever say, "Sit at my right hand"? Yeah. The whole point of Hebrews there is there's a cosmic order of it's God, the triune God, then angels, then humanity, and then all the critters, right? All the creatures that are created. There's an order, that those sort of tiers. And what happened was God, Jesus, the Son of God, becomes human, and then in his ascension, he's human forever, he is enthroned above the angels. And so all of a sudden you have a human being enthroned above the angels. The whole cosmic order of the universe is restructured through the incarnation and exaltation of Jesus Christ. The whole cosmic structure of the universe has been changed. Yeah. Like that's what Christmas is about. Yeah. Like the whole universe changed. And to just recognize that this is huge. Yeah. What's happened, and to let that actually speak into our experience and let it shape us. Like we just go past it. The story's just a little too familiar, too routine, too close for us to see how big a deal this is, right? Yeah. And so that's what I mean by wonder. It's just slowing down enough to absorb it, to let it actually strike our soul with the gravity that it deserves.
Now, I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely right. And I think about so many people who they want that feeling. They want that wonder. They want to have that wonder. And they've felt it at different moments in worship, in a worship service, or when they're reading a book, or they're hearing a sermon like you brought up this past Sunday, where you really helped us to think about what a scandal and how amazing it was, what God did in Jesus Christ through the miracle of Christmas. And yet, I think for a lot of people, the story of Christmas is just so familiar that it's hard to do, right? Like every Christmas song we've heard, and maybe now the Pentatonics are singing it, or another group is singing it. And so it's like, okay, now there's a different beat, and it's a little more exciting. But overall, the Christmas story is kind of like been there, done that, heard it, I know it, I love it. It's the thing that I visit every year.
Right. It's nostalgic, but it's not wonderful.
So beyond just sermons in books, how do we do this ourselves? How do we marvel at a story that is so familiar without having to go to scholarly commentaries or constantly just downloading sermon after sermon?
Well,
which is good stuff. I'm not knocking books and commentaries.
Well, those can all be helpful tools to help kind of open up our curiosity. I think being curious is huge. Even just reading the Christmas story and like put yourself in the character's shoes and just say like, what must it have been like? Like even the questions we try to end with on Sunday, like what must God be like that he would choose this kind of confinement, that he would arrive in scandal like this, that he would show up in, just sort of obscurity. Like those are good like what must it be like? Those are curiosity questions, right? Because curiosity, I think, gives us the way in to wonder. And so I think, it's reading the Christmas story and then just saying, what would it have been like to be one of those shepherds out in the middle of the field? It's cold. I've got sheep. I'm worried about wolves and all that kind of stuff. And have an angel show up and like blow the door off my expectations. And what was it like for those shepherds to then go home after having gone to the manger and seen the baby? And like when they go home and, somebody goes, well, how was your day? Like what would that have been like? How would you even describe it? And all of a sudden by just asking those kinds of questions, you're starting to humanize what has in many ways just become a routine story. Yeah. Right. And they were sore afraid and like all the language that we hear in the official story. It's like, but it's all actually real. It actually happened. So how do I put myself in the shoes of the story and ask questions of curiosity? And what does this mean about God that he would choose this path? I mean, think of the other paths he might have chosen. He could have come to a royal palace and sent his son into nobility and right? I mean, with social elites, but he doesn't pick that. Yeah. Why did he do that? What must God be like that he would choose that?
Well, it sounds like what you're telling people is to be curious and imaginative.
Yeah.
To actually ask questions and then imagine them, to play it out, to be willing to say, what if he did this? Oh, that would be completely different. And what would the effect have been? Like it's a very different way than I think a lot of people read their Bibles, which is, I think a lot of people tend to read it as, this is my vitamin A for the day. I read it and I'm done. And they don't dig in that way of being willing to, to let it be imaginative.
You're starting to let it engage the contemplative, the imagination. It's crossing hemispheres a little bit in your brain, right? Yeah. It's integrating the ideas, and all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more real, a little more personal to reflect and to put yourself in the shoes of it. And I think that's really the key because once we become curious, then we want to know more, and our imagination kicks in. And it's not that long before we start wondering, right? Yeah. Wondering what this is like. And then there's amazement, and then there's worship, right? And then there's response, and just saying, God, I can't believe you would do this. Mm-hmm. And you would do this for me. And that you would go through all of this. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, let's let that start our Christmas season. In the midst of all your craziness, pause. Pause for 15 minutes. I love that simple timeline. Take 15 minutes of each day to pause and wonder. Allow your curiosity to take hold and allow your imagination to wonder at the beauty of our God. Well, I hope that you were encouraged, equipped, and enabled now to go and live the message. If you enjoyed this conversation, go check out the message that went along with it. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating or a like. Thanks for joining us today.